Did you guys see someone else in here? Either way, great to have you here. So today we're going to be talking about the new horror movie, The Monkey. Before jumping in, if you haven't yet, I'd be super grateful if you'd subscribe to the channel for more horror movie reviews alongside other content. So The Monkey was directed by Osgood Perkins, who I haven't seen his other work. I know he did Longlegs and other movies like that. Him and Stephen King are credited as the writers here, and I know this is based off a short story by Stephen King. In that version, he uses the more expected symbols as the monkey, but apparently Disney owns the right to that version of things, so they pivoted to drums here for this movie, which I think works out overall. As far as plot goes for this movie, not much of significance really happens, I'll say. The main point here is that everybody dies, some peacefully, others gruesomely, and that's just kind of how life goes. The high-level plot here is we have two kids, Hal and Bill, who have this monkey that their father left behind, and over time they learn the evil that it can really do. We spent a surprisingly long amount of time with the main character in his childhood, kind of reliving the past, giving off somewhat of that Christmas story vibe with a narration similar to how we had Ralphie in that movie. The twin boys have some traumatic deaths that take place and realize they need to get rid of the evil monkey themselves, but years later it comes back full force. We get some pretty gnarly kill scenes in this movie, almost like the Final Destination type of deaths. Theo James, as our main lead, does a pretty good job playing both adult brothers. It's kind of funny though that you can tell that when they're in the same scene together, they only show one of the brothers' faces in any given camera angle, and for the most part they're not really in the same scenes as adults other than later on in the movie. But we do have the child version of Hal and Bill, also played by the same actor. Not many characters outside of Hal were likable in this movie. The priest was pretty hilarious when he's talking about the babysitter's death and being head separated and things like that, just kind of accidentally saying the wrong things during church. I was pretty shocked to see Elijah Wood in this movie. I don't particularly like him here, which is a rarity for me, but I don't think you're really supposed to like him in this movie. The story here didn't do much for me personally, but I enjoyed the goofiness and wild situations that our lead would find himself in after somebody's guts would get splattered all over him. The vibe of this movie was definitely more of your artsy indie type of film, something you'd expect of a neon distributed film. Online, I saw two subgenres listed as describing this movie, and I think they describe it pretty effectively here. We have dark comedy alongside splatter horror. The film certainly isn't scary and leans pretty heavily into the comedy side of things and over-the-top kills, which is kind of needed for a movie based off of a killer toy monkey. While the pacing was probably fitting for the movie, it was honestly a bit slow for me personally. I don't need constant action here and there, but we went long stretches without much taking place. One example that comes to mind in the adult timeline is scenes where we have this other separate family with inconsequential characters just eating up a lot of the screen time here. So summarizing my thoughts in some specific areas, I want to give some scores as far as different variables to consider with this film, specifically with horror movies. So as far as the plot goes, I'll give this one probably a 2 out of 5 when it comes to score here. There wasn't really much that really excited me personally, if I'm being honest. As far as entertainment score, I'll give this one a 3 out of 5. It definitely had its moments where it's like, okay, that's really exciting, but then we would kind of go back into a lull for a little bit. As far as gore score for this horror film, pretty graphic here. Not something you really need to turn your head away from, unwatchable or anything like that, but it's pretty effective here as far as a lot of the splatter scenes that take place overall. As far as a scare score, probably give this one somewhere in the range of like a 1.5 out of 5. Definitely not a scary movie as far as horror goes. More of that dark comedy side of things. And then rewatchability score, probably similar there, giving this one roughly a 1.5 out of 5. Not something I feel like I need to rush out and watch again. My overall out of 10 ranking for The Monkey as a whole, and being mindful that 5 is average for me, anything below is below average, anything higher is above average. I'm giving this one a 5 out of 10. I thought it was fine. I had a good time here, but it's not something I would plan on buying or necessarily even watching again. It's overall a fine experience, and you're gonna have some good moments throughout it, but it's not something that feels like it's gonna stick with you really long term and not something that you really need to go back to watching over and over again. Although there were some good one-liners here and there, I will say throughout it, like I think they kept mentioning a couple times saying like, oh, let's make like an egg and scramble, which I feel like that's something I'm probably gonna say now as far as I'm leaving the situation. But if you've seen the movie, what'd you think of it? What are the parts that you liked or disliked? Sound off on all things The Monkey down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to talk to you again soon.